Hey YouTube, welcome back to my next video on TradingView and understanding what are all the cool things that you can do with TradingView. So we're going to talk about quite a few different things and hopefully you enjoy this. If you enjoy this, hopefully you watch the first one, which I'll link in the description. If you haven't, you might want to watch that one first, where we talk about setting up indicators and all that fun stuff that you see on the screen here. So we're not going to talk about any indicators or things like that, but we're just going to talk about how to actually use TradingView to get the most out of it. Now, I want to start out by saying that I'm not sponsored by TradingView. I pay for it, I use it, and I just think it's one of the best tools out there. And a lot of people in our community use it every day. So there's a lot of value in understanding how to get the most out of any tool that you use. And that's what we're going to get into here. Today, we're going to start with a few different things that you can do. And the first thing that I think is worth understanding is how to draw things. And I've got on the screen here Meta, where I drew a few different lines on here. And there's some cool things that you should know about drawing lines. So the most basic thing that you can do besides zooming in and out and picking what you're looking at, I think, is to draw lines that can be surprisingly useful depending on how you want to use them. So to draw a line, the first thing that you do is you find the line button here and you just click from one point to another, right? If you want it to be straight and you're not sure if you're perfectly straight, if you hold shift, it'll lock it into either 90 degree, 45 degree, 180, whatever, right? Not quite orthogonal for you CAD drawers out there, but you can get a nice straight line here and just click it again to fix it up. Now, one of the cool things about the line is you can use this for things like determining how long of a period of time you want to look at. And you'll see that it highlights the length of time from one end of the line to the other. And I use this in other areas as well. So we'll look at an example GT where I have, a leap target. And the thing that you can do with the line is I have a leap target here, but I have another line up here that shows when my expiration wraps up. Right, and if I zoom out, maybe it makes a little bit more sense. And you can see that, where I'm not sure this is where I bought it, but this is where it ends. It is January of 2027, hence it being a leap. So if you have a leap target, right, and you're worried about getting to a certain point by a certain point, you can stretch it out to where you think or where you need it to be. And that could be very useful to quickly look at a data point and understand, yes, we're near where we need to be, or I need to adjust because we're never going to get there. Maybe you want to roll it out or whatever it may be. But that is a real simple use of the line. And of course, if you click on the line, you'll see there are some simple settings like the color. You can change the color to whatever you want very quickly up here. And you can also change the color of the text to different colors. We're going to undo. Control Z undoes, by the way. Something else you can do with lines is if you click on a line and you hold Control, you can snap to various, and it tells you that. Great, I got it. Don't need to tell me that again. You can see that it'll snap to particular points of a candlestick, and that includes the body, the wick, the top of the body, top of the wick, whatever it is that you want. I don't think it can do it on the EMAs since those are indicators, but it'll do that on whatever your bar setup is here. So a couple of interesting things on what is just a line can be surprisingly powerful. Next up, we're going to talk about my favorite tool, the cup and handle, or really better known as the ellipse. So I'm going to bring up one that I've drawn before, and that would be on Lunar, where we had a cup, and it's real simple to draw this shape here. You might wonder, like, well, how do you do this? Well, that's what we're going to show you. So I'm going to just delete that one, and we'll start it from scratch, where you go to the brush tool, which, by the way, if you want to use the brush, that lets you just draw. And boom, you got a shape. Now that's one way to draw a cup. I don't recommend it because typically you want to have a little bit better discernment of what you're doing. So you'll click on the arc here. And when you click on the arc tool, you can pick a point. And it's the same thing like a line, right? Although holding shift doesn't work. Control does work though, so you can snap. And then you're just gonna pick whatever your next point is, which in this one, we're just gonna pick right about here. And then you click a second time to put the second point, and the third time to put the bottom of the ellipse or the bottom of the cup here. And that's it, boom. Now you all of a sudden have a cup shape. Obviously, you can do a whole lot of other shapes here, things like rectangles, you might find yourself, maybe we're in this zone that I want to have called out. Another shape that I use all the time is anytime I see something that like, hey, things broke down over here for some reason, or if I want to highlight a gap. So if we look at TTD as an example, we have a big gap over here. And I like to highlight that by having a circle. And again, you can put text in here. You can change your text color. You can change the text size. One other thing that you can do is you can change coordinates direct of any shape. So if you click on this settings button up here, you can change where the actual coordinates are. So like an example of this, you can hold control, but maybe you want an exact number of 57 and 57. It'll slightly move up that line or down to that exact point for you, which is super helpful. And real quick, if you ever forget where to find a particular shape, there's this handy dandy quick search up here. There is a Control K you can type in the shortcut if you want to use that instead. And if you just type in something like line, you'll get trend line. You'll get all these different shapes that you can mess with. So those are a couple of shapes. And oh, there's another gap over there. There's a couple of different shapes that I find myself using a lot. And yet there's more. For some reason, TradingView has emojis that you can choose. And yeah, don't ask why I have certain recently used emojis, but I don't know, maybe you're unhappy about a particular movement and you want to have a emoji, which apparently you can flip upside down too. I didn't realize that until I was doing this. I don't think, oh, you can rotate it too. Nice. That's cool. Why you would put emojis on, I don't know. Maybe if you're just sharing different feelings about something, it makes sense. So you can do emojis too. I do use them on occasion. Usually it's as a joke, but that is something to know about anyway. So that's it. Just a real basic drawing overview for a couple of different shapes that can be pretty powerful. I will go into more in another video where we can maybe get into things like the Gann box or the Gann box. I don't know how you say it. Some of the fib stuff that you can do here. There's the Elliott wave stuff going on. There's a whole lot of patterns and regressions and things like that. But we're just going to start with the basics for this video because a lot of people don't even know how to use a line. Next up, we're going to talk about layouts, which is a very important key. And up here, if you see, I've got Tau and more because I use some of the Tau of trading indicators. I've got a 2-window setup, a 4-window setup, and you can change that if you click this layout setup button to all different types of shapes and chart types. So you can do 3 across if you want, which that's not what I want. Control Z undoes everything, by the way. And I'm going to just show you some other setups that I have saved so that I can quickly go to them whenever I want to look at something as a comparison. So the 2-window, if you click on either one of these, you can put up here, you'll see I've got Tesla versus TSYY. Obviously, you can change these to be, whatever you want. If you're curious how a 2X is doing against the 1X, which should be pretty obvious, they'll look pretty similar. But you can see that like the time can change on one versus the other. So you'll want to keep that in mind as you're going back and forth on different layouts. Another one that I use is I have a 4-window layout, which by the way, if you haven't already, you might want to save these or create a new layout here in order to save these to be easily accessible. And in this layout, I happen to be checking out Ethereum and Bitcoin versus a couple of treasuries, Metaplanet through strategy, and not to get onto that topic because that's a huge tangent that we could go on for quite a while. I just wanted to look at all 4. And so by doing this, by having this 4 windows, you could very easily set up a nice preview of 4 different things that may or may not be correlated. And that's usually what you're looking at these for, is understanding what's the correlation. Would I rather be in one of these versus another? And this actually goes up to some ridiculous number of like 16. That's 8. I don't know why it showed 8 when I clicked. I'm pretty sure I clicked on 16. Maybe there's a size limit based on my screen size. But anyway, you could do 8 if you wanted. I'm not going to do 8. I'm going to undo that so that it's back to my 4 windows. Well, okay, never mind. It's not going to undo it. Well, I'll just click on my 4 windows. And there we go. We're back to 4. And in each of these, you can also have settings lined up, which if you want to change any of these, I'm not going to go through these here. You can change whatever you want. If you're wondering how to change the actual look of any individual component here. Cool. So next up, now that we've got things like drawings, it's important to know that you can actually turn all drawings on and off. There's this fancy button over here that just literally turns them all on and off. So if we go back to, let's go back to our single window so it's a little less busy. And if we were to just check out all these drawings that I've got here, I've got arrows and text and lines and circles. Okay, it's messy. I just want to see the chart. Awesome. And you can do that for all your indicators as well. You can turn off individual EMAs if you've got them set up that way. You can turn off your cloud, which is already off, VWrap off, AutoFib off, all that stuff. And you can make this chart as basic as you want it to be. And then obviously just click them again to turn them back on, depending on what it is that you want to look at on any particular day. The other place that you can do this is over here on the object tree and data window. So maybe you want, we're going to turn everything back on, but you said, I don't want to delete anything, but maybe I just want to turn off the stupid circle and the other one, right? Like you can just hide them. And then you can always go back to it after and turn them back on if you decide, okay, I want to see them again now that I've gotten past whatever it is that you were looking at doing. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about alerts. And alerts are really useful that you can add, depending on your subscription level. I think there's a limit of alerts that you can have on like the lower tiers. And there's also watch list wide alerts that at my tier, I can have up to 2. I actually only have 1 active, but you can do it across the entire watch list all at once. So we're going to go through both those scenarios so you can see what that looks like. So to set up an alert, you're just going to click on the alert button, which is apparently also got a shortcut of Alt-A, which I didn't actually realize. And there's a million different things that you can do. These are based on indicators. You can have things crossing up, crossing down, moving up, moving down, whatever it might be. And then you could pick specific values that you're looking for this to happen at. You can have it trigger once or every time. So obviously if you're doing something like, I don't know, swing trading or whatever it might be, you can set this to go off routinely. So I'm not going to create one here, but I am going to show on my watch list wide, I do have an alert here as well. And here you go. If you click on the watch list button, you can add an alert on the list. And there's some other things that you can do too. You can import a list from other people. You can make copies and have multiple lists. So like if you want, you can have, we're just going to call it watch 2, whatever it is. And obviously you can switch back and forth to your different watch 3 to your different watch lists here, right? So you can just, whatever it is that you want to do. I usually just keep one watch list. So I just renamed it to Rise's watch list because you know what? I've never actually named my watch list. So there we go. Making changes as we go. I love it. So we're on my watch list. One of the things that I have is I have an alert that is watch list wide. And what I have is if you click on the alert tree, you can see it right here. And if I want to edit it, this is the best way to show what's actually in it. You can delete it, of course, as well. On my watch list, I have a condition where as the SMA 50 crosses up over the 100, aka a golden cross, on the 1-day interval, which you can change this based on the chart, by the way, and whatever you want. And the trigger is only once, and it's good until the mid-November. So you know what? I'm actually going to move this out because I actually find a lot of use in it. But we're going to just change it to through December, okay? And I'm going to save that. So what happens is you'll see there's an alerts section here, but there's also a log section. And this shows every time that there's been a trigger of this alert. So, you know, at some point, Lily triggered and it shows it on 9:30 a.m. on October 24th, which would be right here. The SMA crossed. And that's awesome. Super useful information. You might want to use that as a point to get in. And in this case, it would have been really good to get in right there before this wild run-up that we've had. Lily just crushing it recently. Did they break 1,000? It looks like they touched 1,000. Congratulations to Lily. And yeah, so I've got that set up across my entire watch list. Now, I can only have 2 watch list wide alerts based on my account type. So keep that in mind. But yeah, anything that you think is useful information that on any ticker you'd like to see, you can set that up. So obviously, I set that up as a conditional when one thing happens to another as a just a typical important point. But obviously, you can set specific price action based things or as in depth as you want to get. And I recommend that you just experiment a little bit and see what are some things that could be interesting to check out. So maybe we don't care about that. Maybe we care about the super ichi and entering a channel, right? Maybe that's an important thing that stands out. And you could pick the actual line that we're looking for on it, right? So maybe you want the Kijun and the Senku or whatever. Maybe we'll do both Senkus, right? If we're within the span of the Senkus. I think Senko, Senko is probably how you pronounce that. And that's it. You can set this for everything, for your entire watch list. Maybe that's important to you for some reason, or maybe you want it exiting the channel, right? And you can set that to be live for a week, a month. I think you can go for a year. I don't know, however far out it lets you go, I guess. You can go as far as a year. Okay, so January 2026 is as far as it lets me go. I don't leave them that long because I like to reevaluate, and maybe because you can only have a couple, maybe you change exactly how you have that. So again, very useful tool that if you've got the level that lets you put in a watch list wide alert, I recommend that you use them. The last thing that I'm going to cover in this video is very simply this information bar down here that tells you about any company that you've clicked on, whatever it may be, what is financial information, income statement, more financials, and you can click on these things, right? That all of a sudden brings up all this other information, which, by the way, can be clicked on more and more and more, where you can just keep digging into things in almost any time span that you want. And you can check the income statement, the balance sheet, cash flow, there's statistics and dividends and earnings and revenue. Like, this is super deep stuff. And this is amazing for fundamental analysis that you might want to do before you even start looking at technical analysis. Now, they also have things like just general performance, so you can look at seasonality and see how that affects things across multiple years, both in chart or table form. So you'll see these probably posted at times on Reddit or wherever else that you look. This is where it comes from, if you were wondering. And there's other things that you can change here. Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics here because it's totally up to whether or not you want to use these tools, what you're looking for. But then you can go into the technicals as well. And this is where we get into things that we use on technical analysis side, SMAs and EMAs and whatever you want to look at. If you want it, they've got it. The next thing that I wanted to show, though, is things on options, especially if you're looking at things after hours. For one, you can look at things like the volatility curve and is IV changing over time? And if it is, at the money, yep, this is great information to know if you're selling options like we like to do. Make sure that when you're looking at these, you're looking at the right date times that you're interested in. And look at that, it brings up all the different charts on top of each other. That can be real useful to compare multiple charts at once. Maybe you want to look at that plus, something way out there like January, a leap versus near weeklies and monthlies. But back to the chain, you can look at the full option chain within TradingView. So you don't have to go to your brokerage to say like, hey, okay, that's great that we're out at December 12th. No, I want to look at this week, or maybe next week on the weekend, you can look at whatever things closed at, and you've got bid ask over here on selling calls and selling puts, or buying calls and buying puts. We usually sell them. And you can look at prices and price action right now. So the bid ask is not updated right this moment for some reason. Usually it is after hours. But again, you can use this to help plan and look at whatever tools that you think are useful here. And you can do some real cool things now that they've added things like build your own strategy, which is super useful. And you can check out a whole bunch of different types. If you're ever wondering like what the profit looks like for various straddles and spreads and things like that, iron condors and purple monkeys and all the million different things that you can do here. Maybe you're just doing some simple stuff like a long call or a short call, whatever. These are all super helpful to look at the actual profit and values by ticker. And I highly encourage that you mess around with these. Again, you're going to want to change things like expiration to what is relevant to you. You might want to focus on different Greeks, which is going to show theta here, which is obviously a normal distribution. And then you've got other things like rho and vega, etc. Delta, right? Like there's a million things that you can do here. And these visual tools will really help you learn things better than you would if you're just looking at the regular option chain only and not considering other things. You can also even sort these into bullish strategies, neutral strategies, bearish strategies, right? So super cool. It's a little thing, but if you're wondering how you get out of this, don't click the X up here, otherwise you're gonna have to reopen stuff. Just click the little X in the window, and that gets you back to the stock chart. Inevitably, if you've never done this before, you are going to make this mistake and you're gonna be like, how do I get back? Well, you can get back by hitting the plus button up here to add a new tab. You can have multiple tabs, and it's going to have your regular super charts here, or your regular charts. You can show all layouts that you might be using. If you've got a couple more than what I have, you'll have a big list potentially. You have screeners, you have calendars, all this stuff that you can mess around with. I do like to check out the heat maps, and I'll show you one last thing that I didn't think I was going to get into, but you know what, we might as well while we're here. But yeah, all sorts of tabs that you can open up, and I encourage you to mess around and see what they've got. So if you click on the heat maps, it's just going to open up what I've got here. And this is pretty neat, right? I think everybody has seen these charts that are probably watching this video. If you haven't, this is what a heat map is. Red is bad, green is good, more green is better because the market's all up. But there's some cool things that you should know about the heat map on TradingView, and that is you can change what you're looking at. So I have it on the S&P 500. I think that might be the default. You can look at like the NASDAQ, but you can also look at some wild stuff like the Russell 2000 that has that mirror effect of like, whoa, you've got that multiple mirrors showing you like the depths of the universe for some reason. And it's even worse on the Russell 3000, right? Because there's just so many stocks in that. So let's stick to SPY because, you know, if you blow up TradingView, it's not really useful to you. But you can sort this in different ways, right? You can actually do this by volume. Well, that's kind of interesting. Look how that changes things. Like, what are people interested in today? Most commonly, people look at market cap, and that's what you're usually going to see. But there's a lot of different things that you can consider on this as well. And also volume on different time scales can be of use. Look, it changes a little bit based on the time scale. So that might tell you hot or not. Do you remember that website, hotornot.com, back in like the 2000s? The other thing that you can do is you can change the change. You can change it to show, instead of maybe the daily change, you can see what's my performance year to date. Like, whoa, okay, that's kind of cool. NVIDIA up 40%. Did you know Intel is up 80%? I didn't. I haven't clicked on this in a while, I guess. AMD 95%, Tesla only 12%, CMG minus 50%. Like, all this information can be very helpful for you to make decisions on the type of things that you're interested in looking in. Back to market cap, you can change your performance year to date if you want to some crazy stuff too, like volatility. And this is useful information to know where might I see the best premiums on the daily right now, because the lower percent it's going to give you probably lower implied volatility, and the higher percent is going to ultimately translate into higher premiums if you're like us, option sellers. So you can also group these by sector or have no group, which is kind of interesting. I generally like being on sector because it just organizes and categorizes a little bit better than if you have nothing. So this added relativity that it gives you to the sector is often helpful. And that's it. That's what I've got for you today on TradingView. Some of the cool things that you can do with it. I highly recommend that you mess around with it. There is a free version. Again, I'm not paid in any way or sponsored by TradingView to share this information. I just think it's a great tool, and I highly recommend, if you haven't already, start using good tools. Check it out and become a better trader. Next video, we'll cover some higher level topics on TradingView, and I hope you look forward to seeing that one next. Bye now.